Uh, Thank you, Neil, for inviting me and having me today. As you said, I will be telling you about decentralization of your data using a business domain in a data mesh way. There will be, we could say, two parts of this presentation. I assume that not everyone is familiar with a data mesh, and this is why I also will introduce the concept of data mesh. And then I will focus on part of it, which is domain ownership. So how you should then decentralize your data using business and domains. So let's start. What I would like to start, I would like to share with you that in fact, 10 years ago, I already implemented data mesh in different industry, in a different context, but still, it was something like a data mesh. And I would like to start with a story, how I did it. Around 10 years ago, I was a co-owner of a very small company, which was teaching kids programming. And at the beginning, as I told you, it was a very small company. There was me and another, my very good friend, which was another co-owner of the company. And we were trying to teach small kids from years like 6 years to even 17 years, kids programming. And beginning was, we could say, easy because the same group of people was creating a curriculum. So the plan for the lessons. So what you should do in a first lesson, in a second lesson, for example, as a first lesson, you should teach what is the if statement. In the second one, you should focus on a for statement, and so on and so forth. And we also provided things like examples to the teachers, materials to the teachers. And at the beginning, it was very simple because it was like 3 of us. It was me, another co-owner, and one teacher. And together, we were creating curriculum, and we were providing the lessons we were teaching and the kids, and we were receiving the feedback about our curriculum and how we teach the program, or how a teacher, because we had one teacher was teaching the program. And it was easy because the information was just moving between us. But it started to be problematic after few years when we hired more teachers, when we even kick off something like a franchise. So we have franchisee and we were giving them curriculum. They were teaching students, teaching kids programming, but the flow of the information was that we were directly gathering the feedback. And based on that feedback, which was summarized by the central team that was responsible for curriculum, me and my co-owner were making some strategic decisions. What should we do with the curriculum? What strategy we should choose? What kind of tools we should use in a curriculum? And the problem was that exact lesson was the different thing than the template of the lesson, because we still gave a lot of freedom to the teachers, and we didn't know what kind of exact examples they were using during the lessons. And you could imagine that we received the feedback that, okay, everything was pretty fine, but that whole kangaroo thing was pretty scary for me. And we received like 4 feedbacks like that. And question was, what's about this kangaroo? We don't have any kind of a kangaroo in our curriculum. We didn't understand the context of that data, context of that information. It was hidden because the lesson was provided by teacher. We just provided a curriculum for the lesson. And because of that, it was very hard to analyze the feedback, to understand properly the feedback. We were missing the context of the feedback and how the feedback from specific lesson can be mapped into the feedback about the curriculum. And this is when we changed our approach a bit, and we give a bit more responsibility to the franchisee or teachers about the feedback. they still had a freedom how to gather the feedback, because it was different for different groups of our customers. In kindergarten, they preferred, for example, to talk face to face. They didn't have the time, or they didn't want to, fill the forms. For older children, like 17-year-old children, the person who was giving us the feedback wasn't the parent; it was a student itself. So the teachers had the freedom to collect the feedback, but they also were responsible to translate the feedback about the lesson into the feedback about the curriculum, because we as a central team wanted to make the evolution of the curriculum. And what we did, we also used some tools. We provided some simple tools. It was a Google form, as I remember, based on a spreadsheet. So, and based on some kind of template. So you were able to use, when the teacher was providing us feedback, they were able to use same terminology as we were using in the central team when we were developing the feedback. So we were able to easily map their feedbacks from their lesson into the feedback of curriculum. And based on that, we're able to better evolve our curriculum. But not only that, because we use some tools like spreadsheet in this specific case, which was based on which we were passing information between the central team and the franchises or teachers, me as a co-owner and my friend, who also was co-owner, were able to extract some kind of a data out of those feedbacks. So we're able to prepare some summaries. We're able to create some nice, diagrams to see the trends, and we're based on that we're able to translate this kind of a data into a business decisions about our business. But there is a question what it has to do with a data mesh. And before I will answer that, first, I would like to tell you what I think the data mesh is and what we thought it was or it is in our book that I am writing with my colleagues. We were missing, when we were writing the book, we were missing something like a short definition of a data mesh, and it took us a lot of discussions before we come up with one. And this is it. We think that data mesh is in a nutshell a decentralization paradigm. It's about decentralization of a data. It's decentralizing its ownership, the way you are serving the data, and the way you are transforming the data. And if we will go back to my example of the company I was having some time ago, what we decentralized here. In the beginning, everything or every data sets were controlled by a central team. So feedbacks were collected by central team, and they were using those feedback, transforming those feedback, and trying to extract some information or informations from those feedback. And after we changed our approach, we decentralized it a bit. We moved responsibility for the feedback about the lessons to franchisee teachers. So from now, they were responsible to collect the data, and they were responsible to serve us that data in a way that we will be able to understand the context of those information. So they were forced to use the common terminology that we used in curriculum when they were serving us the data. We could say that they were serving us the data with care of the customer that will be using that data. But not only that, we also decentralized the ownership of the feedback summary, because previously the central team was preparing the feedback summary and it was like written in a doc file. And me as a person who is more like an IT guy. I hate doc files. I like to deal with the data. There has to be columns and rows in the data. So because we changed our platform into forms and spreadsheet, I was able to own my data. I was able to transform feedbacks into some aggregated forms, extended with some market research data based on the tools that are popular, and prepared my own data sets that were serving me to make business decisions. And also, central team also had the responsibility. They were responsible for feedback about curriculums, for whole terminology of this curriculum and curriculum itself. So as you can see, previously, one team owns every data set in a company. After the transformation, multiple teams are owning their parts that they understand the best of the data sets. So this is the first thing. Data mesh is about decentralization of data, but you're not doing it without the reason. The reason behind that is that you want to increase extraction of a business value from the data. This is the goal for you. You want to increase extraction of your business value. And how we did that in our case, because the feedbacks were providing with terminology that we understood in a central team, we were able to better translate it into changes of a curriculum. We were able to understand the feedback. So the curriculum was better and better year after year, and it increased obviously customer satisfaction, and in the end, increased customer retention. Also, because I was controlling my summary of the feedback, I and my co-owner were able to make better business decisions. So we increased that value that we extracted from the feedbacks, and we used it to make better business decisions. And also, even teachers were able to get better value out of it because they were directly contacting customers, and they were able to teach better based on the feedback that they were requiring because they were asking the questions. And so we are decentralizing the data and aim because we want to increase value extracted from that data. And the way to do that is to by removing bottlenecks in a process of using that data. And going back again to the example, we removed bottlenecks, for example, by providing a platform, which was a common platform between teachers, central team, and owners of the company. So the flow of the data was seamless. We also removed the bottlenecks because we provided terminology. And with that terminology, central team was able to understand the feedback. And last but not the least, and this is the part that Zhamak Dagani, who is a creator of the concepts of data mesh, puts a lot of pressure on, is the 4 pillars of a data mesh, 4 principles of a data mesh. And we think that because the data mesh is about decentralization of data, we do it because we want to increase value extracted from the data, and we are doing it by removing some bottlenecks in the process. But decentralization on its own is not easy. It's in fact, it's very complex. It's hard to do it correct, and it's even harder to do it correct scale. And the way how to do it efficient at scale is by applying the 4 principles of the data mesh that, thanks to Zhamak Dagani, she were able to combine those principles and to form them as a group and give us a guidance how to do it efficiently at scale. And what are the principles? First principle is domain ownership. Second principle is data as a product. Third principle is federated computational governance. And the last principle is self-serve data platform. So let's see on our example where we can find those principles here. Domain ownership. We moved responsibility for the data sets, for the data products, you could call them, using terminology of data mesh, to the specific domains. First one was a teacher domain, so teaching kids domain. They were, after the transformation, responsible for feedback about the lessons. Second domain that we moved responsibility to was Programming Academy Central Team. They were responsible for feedback about the curriculum, for curriculum itself. And we as the owners were responsible for feedback summary, for strategic decisions. So the domain ownership, the first thing. Second one is treat your data as a product. With that principle, you are trying to serve your data with care. You are trying to think about end customers that you are will be using your data. You don't want just to throw them at their faces gigs of data and do it what you want with it. You're trying to do it with care, thinking about their use cases, asking them about their use cases, asking them about the feedback about how you are providing them their data. And in this case, teachers, franchises were providing us feedback in a way that we were able to understand it. They provided us it using common terminology, so we were able to use it for our purpose. So second principle was treat your data as a product. Third one was federated computational governance. And in this case, the governance part was about choosing the common platform, and the governance part was about choosing a terminology and a template for providing us a feedback about the curriculum. And it was federated because still franchisee teachers were having their autonomy to make their decisions about the lessons, about the feedback about the lessons and that they are collecting and analyzing. It was their governance part. They were self-governing themselves about that, but still we had to have something like a central body that was thinking about governing it on more central level. And it was us with teachers and franchises that together we tried to come up with a common way to exchange the feedback and provide some standards. And it was also computational, so it was automatic, we could say, because we used our platform, which was a spreadsheet or the forms, and those forms were validated. So the rules that we choose to have, the standards that we choose to have, were validated automatically by the form, and because of that, it was computational, you could say. Last principle is about self-serve data platform. In our case, obviously, it's not like a data lake, it's not like a data vault, it's not anything very complex, but still it's a platform, it's a way to communicate between each other, to automate that communication. In our case, the platform were the forms and the spreadsheet underneath. The platform also help us automated governance because we're able to implement the rules created in governance in platform itself, in forms, in a form of validation. So as you can see, all parts of a data mesh, let's say listed by Zhamak, and also created in our definition of a data mesh, were here. were in this example of our company. Okay, so to summarize, what is the data mesh? And data mesh is a decentralization paradigm. It tells you that you should decentralize ownership, transformation, serving. And it aims to increase value extraction out of your data by removing the bottlenecks. And the way to do it efficiently at scale is by applying 4 principles: domain ownership, domain data as a product, federated computational governance, and self-serve data platform. Okay, I promised you at the beginning that there will be 2 parts of the presentation. First one was about data mesh itself, because I assume not everyone is familiar with a data mesh. So I tried to provide a simple explanation of what data mesh is as possible. Because honestly, when I was reading about data mesh at the beginning, when Zhamak has provided her articles, which were great in a fact, but at least for me, they were too complex. It was really hard to grasp what is the true nature of it, or what it is in a nutshell. And this is why we tried also to come up with something like a simple definition with simple examples of it. But as I told you, I wanted to focus on one part of a data mesh, or one principle that is especially important, at least for me, I think. And this is the principle that I could call myself, some specialized that I'm specialized in it because of my background. I'm coming from a domain-driven design community. I'm more software guy even than a data guy. Because of my background and what I was doing for a very long time, I specifically focus on domain ownership part of a data mesh. And first question that is quite often appears when people are discussing domain ownership is a question about domain itself. What is domain? And from my perspective, it's most simple to explain it on examples. And you can see that I made some colorful circles around parts of a process, of a simple process that was happening in our company. First circle was around franchisee teacher and their relation with customers, with kids. We could say that this part of organization has one goal. It was created, or it exists because of one reason. They want to teach kids. This basically defines this part of organization, and the outcome of this part of organization is a transfer of knowledge and the skills and the kids' satisfaction. So we could say that this part of a business, this part of organization, is a domain. Which is about teaching kids. Another one in the middle, we put the circle around feedback about curriculum itself, and the programming academy central team that was responsible for creating the curriculum. And we could say that this part of a business, we could call it a domain, its goal is to develop curriculum. Outcomes is customer retention, it's popularity of the curriculum and the program, and it's an engagement of the kids, of our customers, and also good curriculum is very easy to be taught by teachers. So this small domain, this small part, you can say that it has one reason to exist, one most important business goal. it's about developing curriculum. And another one, on the last one on top, you have a circle around feedback summary, around me, also my co-owner should be there. It's about managing whole business, managing franchise, and the outcome is increased profitability, is grow franchise. So as you can see, domains are part of the businesses that you could define them as a part that is able to do something like teach kids, like develop curriculum or manage franchise. It has business, one reason to exist, or one main responsibility, we could say. And domain itself and subdomain, those are the terms taken from domain-driven design. And it's those terms are quite abstract. There's no precise definition out there, or very precise definition that would probably help you somehow to define them on your own. And this is why I'm quite often not using terms like domain or subdomain. I prefer to use a term which is called business capability. This term is taken from business architecture. So old school enterprise are part of old school enterprise architecture. I prefer it because it's almost equal in nature to domains and subdomains, but it has much more precise definition. And from its definition, you could say that business capability is business outcome oriented. It's built around one outcome that you want to have out of this capability. If you would like to tell or describe the capability, you should be able to describe it in a way that it's some kind of ability of a business to do something. Usually you describe it with a combination of verb and noun. It should be somehow autonomous and self-governed usually. So it should be some autonomous part of your business. And what is the relation between domains, subdomains, business capabilities? As you can see on the picture, those terms are almost equal. Those terms are hierarchical. So one big domain in our example of programming academy business could be split into 3 subdomains, which is manage franchise, develop curriculum, teach kids. And you can also go even deeper. So manage franchise could be split even further into this, for example, grow franchise and research the market, or analyze feedbacks and research the market. So those were 2 parts closer to the data, but still you could describe them as a business domains. So it's hierarchical, it's building something like a tree, and domain is the same thing as business capability. Every domain or business capability could have underneath or inside of it multiple subdomains and business capabilities. And every subdomain is a domain or business capability that could contain even more business capabilities and subdomains. As I told you before, my background is from domain-driven design, and domain-driven design is a very interesting concept. You could compare it even to a philosophy. It's a philosophy that tells you that you should apply domain thinking at each step of software and development cycle. So when you are gathering requirements, for example, you are not asking users about their wish lists of the features. You are trying to understand the business process underneath. When you are coding later on the model in a software, you should use the term from the domain. And this is the philosophy of domain-driven design. Think about domain all the time when you are building solution, where you are building models that will support that solution. And what is interesting about DD, you can easily compare microservices build it with domain-driven design in mind. So usually you will divide into microservices using domain-driven design with a data mesh. For me, those are very similar concepts. Decentralization, on one side, there's a decentralization of a software world, and on other side, it's a decentralization of a data world. And both paradigms of decentralization use the same foundation, which is domain thinking, domain ownership. And I wanted also during this presentation not leave you without any tools that you could use after this presentation. And I wanted to share with you two simple ways. First is how to understand the domain, and second one, how to use it to try to divide into data products from a terminology of a data mesh. I'm very, if you will read the book, you will see that I focus a lot on the facilitation. It is probably my main activity that I'm doing in my role. I facilitate workshops on many occasions and for different reasons. And this is why I wanted to share with you those tools. The first one, which I use very, very broadly for data purposes, as well as for software engineering, whenever I am trying to understand the domain, then split into systems, or understand the domain and try to split ownership for a data, I'm using so-called domain storytelling. And domain storytelling is a workshop exercise that is, as the name says, is about telling stories. And I think it's extremely good because it's very natural for us. We have written in DNA that we are sitting, in around the fireplace, and we are sharing stories between each other. Our minds are building in a way that stories remains in our memory. And but as you can see, it has a simple notation. There are 4 parts of this notation. There is an actor on a blue sticky note. There's a work object on a yellow sticky note. Activity, which is an arrow with a description, and a small green sticky note, which is an order. And you can read it as a story. So in this example, Programming Academy Central Team sends curriculum to franchise teacher. Teacher performs the lesson for customers. And after the lesson, customer shares feedback about the lesson with the franchise teacher. And then franchise teacher share their feedback about the curriculum with Programming Academy Central Team, and so on and so forth. It's quite easy to understand it. And it's very easy to extract it, I would say, from business experts. You just meet in one room. You take the technology experts, you take the business experts, you give them sticky notes, and they start to share stories about their business. And after such session, it could be 1 hour or 2 hours, both sides have common understanding what the domain, the business domain is about. And going back to the data, I like to use this tool and similar tools and to decide on the ownership of data. Based on such a domain storytelling, you could see and analyze that there are 3 domains in our domain of Programming Academy. There is a Teach Kids domain, there is a Develop Curriculum domain, and there is a Manage Franchise domain. And each of those domains have some data that is, we could say, part of it that was created in this domain or by this domain or as a byproduct of this domain. As an example is a feedback about the lesson. It's inside of a domain which we could call Teach Kids. Same thing with curriculum and the feedback about it. It's a part of a developed curriculum. And if we could imagine that it's not exactly this example, but this example of a software, bigger software systems or multiple systems. If lessons and feedback about the lessons would be one system developed by one team, which is a team of teachers, they would be also responsible for the data product that would be called feedback about the lesson. So, and the same with feedback about the curriculum or curriculum itself. You could have a data product, which is curriculum and feedback about it. By using the domain storing, you can see natural team that should own the data set and should serve it to others. In this case, it would be a central academy team or some software system with the team owning it, that is in which you are creating this curriculum and gathering the feedback about it. Yeah, so the idea is to use so-called heuristic here, something like a rule of thumb, that you should align your data sets or your data products boundaries with boundaries of your domain. So if you are thinking who should own the specific data set and create data product out of it, the natural choice would be a domain and teams that are inside that domain, or people that are inside that domain should own this data product and data sets, because they know the best context of that data. They will be the best choice to serve that data out to others because they understand that data, they know how to transform it, they know how to enrich it and expose and serve it to others.